Hello, my name is Wonho. I'm trying to introduce my friend Larry, who gonna interview my term assignment. So, Larry, why don't you tell me about yourself, where you were raised, and then something.
Well, I was born in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And then grew up in Norman, Oklahoma, which is 17 miles south of downtown Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
From the time that I went home from the hospital until I graduated from college, I went to the University of Oklahoma, which is in Norman,
mm-hmm.
and so spent all my life there.
Mm-hmm.
And then after college, spent a year in Miami, Florida, a year in Fort Worth, Texas, and 4 years in Iowa, 2 more years in Oklahoma, and 28 years in East Lansing.
East Lansing for 28 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When did you first know you were interested in sports?
Well, I never remember not knowing that I was interested in sports. It's been something that was interesting for me all of my life. Mm-hmm. And so, elementary school, I remember following sports and so on. In elementary school, Oklahoma had a really good football team when I was a very young child. Mm-hmm. And so I probably got into it because of that. But and probably the other thing that contributed to that is that I'm blind, and so listening to the radio means a lot more to me than watching television. Mm-hmm. And of course, baseball is on the radio a lot.
Radio stuff.
Yeah, and so I listened to a lot of baseball games, and that got me interested too.
Yeah, thank you. Who was the most important athlete when you were young?
The most important athlete to me personally, or to the most important athlete kind of in the American sports?
I mean, for your personal.
For me personally?
Yeah.
I was a baseball player for my favorite team. My favorite team is the Cleveland Indians. And so my favorite player was a guy named Rocky Colavito. Mm-hmm. He was the kind of the star player for the Indians in the late 1950s. Mm-hmm. And so I liked him a lot. He hit a lot of home runs. He played right field and was a good right fielder. Had a really good throwing arm, so he would throw out a lot of players trying to stretch singles into doubles, or
Yeah, he was really popular when
Yeah, he was very popular. He was the most popular player on the Indians team in those days.
Yeah.
And so he was the one that. I'd always try to collect all of his baseball cards. And
I know. I used to, same thing. How has money changed sports over your lifetime?
Well, I'm old enough that I do remember sports before free agency.
Yeah.
I remember when Curt Flood was a player for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he is the one that's kind of given the credit for opening up free agency in baseball, which then, of course, led to the similar things happening in football and basketball at the professional level, and hockey as well. And so one of the main things that has happened because of that is that you don't have near as many players who stay with the same team, in professional sports. And so what happens if you're a fan of a particular team, like, for me being a Cleveland Indians fan, a Cleveland Browns fan, Cleveland Cavaliers, well, I would, you end up rooting for a uniform more than a particular player, because the players change so much. And so that's had I think that's had by far the most impact as far as the finances. The other thing is that it's disappointing now, because it's so expensive to go to games, that a lot of people that are real fans never have the opportunity to go to the games, because just the cost of parking and food and tickets, and it's so expensive that many people who would very much enjoy going to games and would be real fans cannot afford to to do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of that again is because of free agency, the price of the players' salaries force them to raise prices of tickets and food and those kinds of things, and so that's made it hard.
Yeah, sure. What was the most exciting game you saw or played in? Anything between?
Oh wow! I think the most exciting game that I saw was when Oklahoma basketball team was in the National Invitation Tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And they played a school from California, and I think it was California Irvine or someplace like that. It was a fairly small school,
mm-hmm.
but they had made the NIT tournament as well. And Oklahoma had gone through a long stretch of time where they had a very bad basketball team, and
mm-hmm.
so to make the National Invitation Tournament was very important, and it was big,
Sure.
And they played the game at Oklahoma, and I got to go to the game.
Uh-huh.
And it was, the winner of this game went to New York City to play in the semifinals of the National Invitation Tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And Oklahoma was down by 17 points with about 12 minutes to go in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up winning the game by 5 or 6 points. And just being a part of the crowd, to be able to cheer for them and seeing that kind of a comeback, and
mm-hmm.
that was by far the most exciting crowd,
mm-hmm.
That I've been at a game of any kind of game at, and the game itself, and of course it ended the way I wanted it to.
So, could you explain that a bit more about Oklahoma at the time? It was a really popular team, or just doing okay?
No, they were. Oklahoma is primarily known for football,
uh-huh.
and by their basketball team, has good years now and then, but they're not consistently good like the football team usually is.
Mm-hmm.
And so the basketball team had gone through several years of losing more games than they won.
Uh-huh.
And this particular year, they had a pretty good season, and so they made the National Invitation Tournament, which is the tournament that 32 teams get into after the NCAA has picked
mm-hmm.
who they want.
Mm-hmm.
Then the National Invitation Tournament picks 32 teams that they want,
mm-hmm.
and the next that are left over, and they have their own tournament.
And
Oklahoma was invited to that one. And so it was, but that was exciting for all the fans, because mm-hmm. That's the first time Oklahoma had made either one of the tournaments in several years, and so everybody was quite excited about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.